Well, what inspires you?
Oh boy. I would say I spent a long time and a long journey in my life trying to find hope and to have hope. And we can get into, but I have accomplished a lot of that in the last couple of years. And what inspires me is that hope. Um, there's a great quote I've seen and used from Christopher Reeve, in fact, after he was paralyzed, and said, "Once you choose hope, anything is possible." And I love that, and I think that's exactly right. And so for me, that hope married with I really love people, and I get inspired by talking to people and hearing their stories of what they're doing, what they're seeing, or just learning from each other. And so the combination of those two things keep me moving and going. And obviously, I mean, started in leading a movement to build unity in America. I'm clearly inspired by our country and a patriotism and a love for what we are and can be and are always striving to be. So all of those things are what inspire me.
Very nice. Could you take us through a bit of your journey and how that led to you being at Us United and founding it?
Yeah, it's a unique story. So I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, and I grew up in a household that was all about IQ and not about EQ, and was very, you know, traditional success, achievement oriented. And so in that path, I went after school, I went right to Wall Street, and I was in the private equity and hedge fund world for almost 20 years. And then switched and took over and ran a public digital media and entertainment company, and always an entrepreneur. I've started a lot of businesses. Started after that, I started a business with a friend in LA when I moved from New York to LA. And so business, finance, investing, entrepreneur. And I was good at it and I enjoyed lots of pieces of it, but it also made me, it sort of built a lot of unhappiness in me too, right? A lot of people I was dealing with, like it was, putting on the suit of armor and going into battle every day, especially in the investing world. I mean, everything's a negotiation, everything's a fight, and that's not all bad, but it's exhausting. And at least for me, I struggled to say, oh, I can come home, take off that suit of armor, and be a great husband and a great parent. I didn't, and I couldn't. And some of that was on me, some of that is what we were doing. And so, but I spent 25 years in that world, and it was and learned a lot and made a lot of great friends. And so I was sitting home. We were at that point in Los Angeles in May of 2020 after George Floyd was killed, yelling at the television, screaming, "This is not the country that I think we are, that I love, that I want us to be." Um, Knowing all the imperfections, I'm not at all glossing over it, but like why are we should be able to figure this out versus killing each other and fighting on television. I was like, what am I doing? I had literally had one of those lightning stroke Hollywood epiphany moments. I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going back to work. I kind of said, I can't just give another donation to, there's the ACLU or any number of great causes. I'm like, if some set of people, background, experience, relationships like I have in business and finance, don't give our most valuable resource, our time, things won't change because you need me. Lesson number one as an investor, you need good management teams. You need good people. Well, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna figure out how to do that. I didn't know what that meant, but I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm like, then next day, I'm like, that's where I'm going. I'm on the path. I've been an entrepreneur. I've started lots of businesses. I'll figure it out. And I'll let the energy take me where it's going to take me and to the people it's going to take me to. And that I got on that path right away. A month later, I'm at a conference for a group that I'm in that's called Patau. It's an interesting community of CEOs and CMOs of some of the biggest companies in the world and some entrepreneurial, interesting startups. And someone, now a good friend, created the social justice task force there. I joined it. I'm like, that sounds like something that'll get me in the right direction. Get on that. Another friend there says, Adam, you need to come with me to Michigan, to Flint, to meet the sheriff. This is now in the fall, November, and this is November of 2020. I'm like, what are you talking about? Sheriff? What's a sheriff? Like a cop? Like in Michigan, Flint, like bad water, and it's really cold in the winter. Why am I going there? My friend Ken was like, you got to do this. I'm like, okay. One of my lessons in life is the meetings and the people you least expect to be amazing often turn out to be. And those that you're the most hopeful for more often than not disappoint. So when a friend of mine says, trust me, do this, my answer is okay. Get on a plane, go to Flint, Michigan in November 2020, meet Chris with Ken, and we just hit it off. I mean, Chris is an amazing human. He's, co-founder now of Us United with me. He got incredibly well known. At the same time I was screaming at television, he was that May 30th, there was a big protest gathering in Flint, Michigan. Hundreds of people, they were going to go burn down the police department. What we were seeing on TV that night, Chris rolls up with a bunch of deputies, and he's like, and he'll tell you, he's like, you could see the riot about to start. And he's like, this makes no sense. And he really authentically sprung on. He said, I took off his armor and his helmet, walked into a hostile crowd, said, what do you want? What do you want? We want to be with you all. And they said, walk with us, and started chanting, walk with us. I said, all right, let's walk. And for the next 6 hours, thousands and thousands of people marched arm in arm in Flint, Michigan for peace. And CNN happened to be there, and 3 billion people saw that in the next 48 hours. I met him 6 months later. We hit it off. I'm like, you inspired me. I'm writing a business plan. I'm good at those things. I'll write a plan. And that plan, with lots of evolution, has become Us United, with a movement to build unity in America by giving all Americans, all of us, the tools we need to reunite our country. Because it's not coming from anyone other than we, the people. It's not coming from our political leaders today, certainly not coming from our media. We have to do this. And we kind of stepped back and said, well, how? I mean, so I was like, well, what are we trying to fix? And he said, well, first of all, almost all of us live, work in social media and ever shrinking bubbles. And outside of our bubbles, we categorize everyone and we label them. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a complicated world. It's how we process, right? But first question, have you ever found yourself sympathizing or compromising with a label? No. You need people. You need a connection. But it could be on a Zoom, it could be in person, but you need to connect, and you make a human connection is where you find common ground and you're willing to compromise. Okay. We got to fix that. We got to get people out of those bubbles. And then I look around and say, look, is there a brand of unity? So I start with, are there brands of division? I'm sure you can think of a whole bunch, starting Republican and Democrat, by the way, and we can keep going. Where's the brand of unity? It doesn't exist. How are you gonna have unity without a brand? So here you go, Us United. We're a brand of unity, and that's part of what we are. Purple is and white are our colors. Why purple? Red and blue make purple. That's what unity starts to look like. So now we're saying we're creating, so we have brand, we're changing culture, right? We've got to make unity something people prioritize and value. We're creating content, we're having events, we're engaging people. We have digital and real life storytelling, we have inspiration, we have all of those pieces to say, this is how we come together and we reunite our country. And so we've been at it for, since really in the last 4 years. And we do a range of things. From on the digital side, we have a lot going on in social media, and we have a simple take a unity pledge, share that you did that, but most importantly, honor that by doing what we call change the algorithm. That's our call to action. If once a week, everybody, you, me, everybody said, let me take 1 or 2 minutes and let me post a video of something that I did in my community that was kind or helpful or brought people together, or I saw someone do, well, we would literally change the social media algorithm if millions of people started doing that. And that's one of my responses when people say, Adam, what am I going to do? I'm not the president. I'm not the governor. I'm not a billionaire. How am I going to do anything? I'm like, if you're right, any one person, hard. But millions of people doing one simple thing, change the algorithm with one post a week for 2 minutes, literally, it changes. The news media is going to cover that. We're going to have a whole different culture. So we have that. We created along the way. Well, actually, the first thing Chris and I created after we met like a month later, we started our first holiday giving spectacular where the entire community comes together with the sheriff's office, with law enforcement, to nominate families that need help and provide them that help at the holiday season, and have that help provided and delivered by everybody, not just the police, not just the church, not just the school, not just the nonprofit, not just the hospital, the whole community, black, white, brown, yellow, law enforcement, and literally make a party. There's a parade of police cars and civilian cars delivering these boxes of necessities that we've gathered for people to their families. And we say to them, if you don't need something here, pass it on, give it to your neighbor or your friend. Let's make unity go further. And we ask people what they need because they'll tell you. And so literally we one year was a woman who was skin and bones in chemo, December in Michigan, has no hot water heater. So she's coming home from chemotherapy, taking cold showers in the middle of winter. We buy her a hot water heater and we install it. Changes her life. Another time, a family's like, I'm going to lose my job. I can't put new tires on my car and I'm going to get fired. We buy them tires. Don't get fired. That's the worst thing that could happen to you, right? So we do that. We started from the and little things. That's a big became a big event, but that idea spurred into many things. So from there, we said, hey, we need to create a sheriff's unity network because there's 3,086 sheriffs in this country, all of them elected. They may run in a party, but basically nonpartisan, building community, helping people in their communities, and no one knows. We're like, well, those are our local partners. We can do so we now do those holiday spectaculars. Last year we did it in over 30 communities. The goal is in 5 years, every sheriff, every county in America has a holiday spectacular. That'd be amazing. But they become our ground force, our partners locally. Then we said, you know what? Let's create National Unity Day. There's no day for literally we create a holiday. It's on the National Day calendar, the second Saturday of December, when we now and for 6 years have done the holiday spectacular, becomes a day to celebrate unity, to change the algorithm. We also say make the call. We almost everybody has someone, friend, family member that we don't talk to or we barely talk to because of politics. That's stupid. No offense to anybody, but there's no. I mean, you can pick. Well, it doesn't matter. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Barack Obama. None of them know nor care that you're not talking to your cousin or your brother or your friend from high school. So why are you not doing it? Because of them. They don't care, and I don't mean that as a criticism. They don't know that they're doing their job. You don't have to agree to be friends. So National Unity Day, make that call. Do all those things. For National Unity Day, even before that, we were connected with the King Center and we become strategic partners with the Martin Luther King Center for Nonviolent Change. I talked with Reverend Dr. Bernice King. I mean, like in my life, I can tell you 5 years ago when I was screaming at the TV, never in my wildest dreams would this idea that we had to build a movement for unity be aligned with the King Center, right? I mean, because Martin Luther King's whole message was unity, the beloved community, building unity. Well, together, so we rolled out National Unity Day together. They started to get involved in holiday spectaculars. We're now working with them on our next big thing. We came up with this idea of unity seats. Just take a step back, right? What still unifies Americans? Sports, music, food.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, what if eventually, what if at every sporting event or music concert, there are 4 or 5 seats set aside that are unity seats? And we work, us United and the local sheriff in our network, we identify 2 groups of 2 people don't know each other, never met, different on the surface by definition, put them together in unity seats, cheering for their favorite team. Put them on the Jumbotron, make it a party. But if you meet someone and you're in Indianapolis, so you're cheering for the Pacers. I'm in Denver, so I'll cheer for the Nuggets, but I'm a New Yorker by trade. I grew up there, I'm a Knicks fan. If I'm sitting there and we don't know each other and we're cheering for you and I could be at a Knicks Pacers game. We may be wearing opposite jerseys, but at the end of that game, are we friends? Of course we are. Because we have something in common and we had fun together. And then when we get to those tougher conversations, even if they came up while we were together, we listen to each other because we respect each other because we found commonality. So unity got me great seats to see the Knicks and the Pacers. Division, I'm home alone on the sofa. Well, now I'm sending that message. Now I'm changing culture. Now I'm showing what unity can look like. And now we're inspiring people to change the algorithm, right? So we're rolling that out. We're going to do a big tour this summer across all kinds of professional sporting events and stadiums with unity seats and capture all that content and share those stories. So, and that is actually the sequel, and then I'll stop talking. Sorry. To last summer, I got in a purple and white pickup truck and spent 2.5 months driving across America to visit sheriffs and visit everyday Americans. We had a film crew because I was like, what's really going on here? I mean, are we as divided as I see on TV or you see on TV or I read in social media and whatever? I was like, I don't think so, but I don't know. So I'm like, let's get in a car and see. And with a film crew, because it's America in 2025, then 26, you got to capture everything you do. But we wanted to share those stories. And what we saw was really eye opening. And the whole trip for me was life changing. But what we saw was eye opening because, first of all, I asked everybody, how do you define unity? What does it mean to you? And we'll come back, Graham. I'm going to ask you to answer the question so you can start thinking about it. But everyone I talked to used some subset of the same 12, 15 words. I was blown away. Like, didn't matter. Didn't matter where, didn't matter who, didn't matter what age, what color of their skin, man, woman, none of it. That's important because you can't fix a problem if people don't agree with it what it is.
Mhm.
So they do. The next thing that surprised me is that the majority of people I talked with do not believe we are as divided as we hear every day. And even those that did, everyone I talked to agreed they didn't want us to be. I mean, I randomly talked to people everywhere, from deepest of MAGA t-shirts to deepest of blue t-shirts to everything in between. I didn't find one person who said, "Yeah, we got to go to war over this, right? We got to kill the other side." I know that exists, but I talked to thousands of people and nobody said that. So I was like, well, that's encouraging. And the third thing with it, and it really gets back to everything else United's doing, is they're like, we need hope. We need inspiration because they're like, you showing, I mean, this was an epiphany moment for me. Like, Adam, just you showing up in a purple and white pickup truck and a baseball cap, basically giving us hope. I'm like, I never thought of myself as that. But part of what I was able to do is say, look, hey, I was just in Texas and I was just in Arkansas and I was in Illinois and now I'm up here in Vermont. And they're saying the same things in Texas and Arkansas and Illinois that you're saying in Vermont. And here's ideas of how they're building bridges in their community. And people are like, oh my God, I needed to know that because I didn't know other people thought it like I did or do like what I was doing. So that's hope. That's inspiration. Here are tools that you can bring in your daily life. So that's all the things that us United is doing and more, because that's how we bring change, right? That's how we engage Americans in this beautiful experiment. As I like to say, like in business terms, I mean, this is the greatest startup in the history of the world, but it sure as ain't easy, right? We know that, but it's up to us to keep it going. So,
Adam, that's powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing, and I can
yeah,
feel the passion coming through
yeah,
for just this overall mission. But really cool to hear what Us United is doing. I think of a lot of things, but when you're talking about unity, I mean, I think about just the simplicity of bringing people together. Now, the
mhm,
details behind that, and how you do it, and what you're doing, and bringing people together around what. I think you said a lot of that. Hope, inspiration, the common good in people. But that's what I think of is just bringing people together, and
yeah,
that's to me is what unity is all about.
yeah. And what I always say is, look, unity. It does not mean unanimity. It does not mean we always agree.
Hmm.
What it means, as you said, people coming together, um, listening to each other, compassion. I mean, one of the most important things I heard a lot on the road and kind of resonated with me, and I always thought is it starts with respect,
Hmm.
right? We sat down with Shaquille O'Neal, and there's a video of it on our Instagram, and Shaq basically said that's what it is. It's all about respect. He's like, because if I respect you and you respect me, we can talk about anything. We don't have to agree, but I respect what you have to say, and there's an understanding, and we can find common ground, and we can find ways to get aligned on certain things. It's like when I find someone with no respect, it's like I just exit the situation. I mean, I don't know who does it. Very few people probably don't respect Shaquille O'Neal at this point, but he knows that. But you find it. I mean, and he's like, when I see people without respect, he's like, I'm not going to pick a fight, I'm not going to make a scene, but I'm going to exit that conversation gracefully and with respect because I'm going to move on to people who I can have that mutual respect with. I think that's a really, really, really insightful point. And if we all thought about that, mean, just start thinking about social media, like the amount of stuff people say with anonymity because they can. Well, if you took a step back and said, I respect people, would I really do that? No, I wouldn't talk that way. Of course
Mhm.
not. Right? It's not. There's little things like this that I think people need to be reminded of, and they need to see examples of it. So
Yeah, I continue to get the feeling of just the need to have more good in this world that is shared, right? It's happening.
yeah,
It's out there. It's
yeah,
definitely there. We'd be in big trouble if it wasn't happening, but it's out there. But I think a lot of times it's about seeing that brighter side and not like sticking your head in the sand and pretending like bad stuff's not going on, but more so focusing on the good stuff and how to improve the areas where we have some clear areas for improvement as a, whether that's a country or humanity or whatever. So, um, is there? I love the Shaq story too, because Shaq's somebody that so many people know
yeah.
who he is and think very highly of him in some way or another. Is there a success story? You've already shared so many just small stories,
Yeah.
but is there one success story that stands out that kind of sums up what Us United is really all about?
Oh boy. Sure. There's lots. Um, but here's one. I was on our road trip. I was in Victor, Montana, in the Bitterroot Valley. Beautiful, by the way, beautiful part of it. That's where they filmed Yellowstone, the TV series and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So went down to the ranch, the whole thing. Um, but had a lot of conversations and obviously a deep red state. And the deeper the red or the deeper the blue state we were in on our road trip, more often people thought we were divided. They didn't want to be, but it was interesting. Purple or pink or light blue, there was much more belief where you would think there'd been even that we weren't divided, even though they probably see more back and forth on the issues. But the deep red, deep blue, so we're talking to lots of people. And one of the questions I started to get asked a lot on this road trip would be people are like, Adam, so and so, or just the other side, they don't listen. They
Mm-hmm.
just want to tell me they're right and I'm wrong. And I can't talk to them, but I want to. How do I do that? Whether it was around an individual or just general. And I was like, look, start with really listen, really ask questions when you're talking to people and listen to the answers. Don't go right to I'm right, you're wrong. And even after listening, don't go to I'm right, you're wrong. I said, if I tell you you're wrong and I'm right, are you going to believe me? No, you're going to put up the wall. You're like, well, that guy's a jerk. I'm not listening to that. So really listen and really ask questions was a key piece of it. And then what I talked a lot about was when you disagree, don't go from the place of I disagree and this is why. And I'm as a result, I'm right. Tell a story. I mean, share a personal experience that you've had, or a friend or family member, or that you witnessed, or whatever it may be. Because if you're sharing a story that provides a different perspective on whatever the issue is that someone has, they'll listen to your story and they can't say you're wrong. It's your lived experience. It's yours. It happened to you. So someone can say, and they may not agree with it completely, but they're going to listen. If you want to have some impact in changing someone's perspective, 5, 10, even 20%, do it with a story, that human connection we talked about, right? So I would start to give that advice more and more. And I practice that advice. So we're in Montana, and I'm talking to a really interesting woman, a woman named Misty, who I met at this town fair. She had a big booth t-shirt stand selling every aggressive MAGA t-shirt, alligator Alcatraz t-shirt. You go down the list. She was selling all of that stuff. I'm like, Misty, so we start talking, and I ask her, what does unity mean to you? And what do you think we're getting more united, divided? And talking about a lot of her answers. And I'm like, look, Misty, I don't understand. I think you and I would both agree with what you described of how you describe unity and what you're looking for and valuing in the country and the culture. That's not what Donald Trump is doing. I said, we agree with that. She's like, totally. She's like, not him. She's like, look, Adam, I'm not having dinner with Donald Trump. I'm not watching a movie with Donald Trump. I hired him to do a job. And the job I hired him to do is fix America. And if I think he's fixing America, I don't care about that. He's fixing America. And it's like I learned how to understand that difference of, you know, when your personal beliefs differ from what anybody elected. We're like, how do you reconcile that? So I learned something from her story and I changed. And then we kept talking and she's like, and she brought up immigration and she's like, Adam, we need to get rid of all these illegal immigrants who don't love America. I said, well, who do you mean? And she said, Arabs. I said, all Arabs? All of them. I said, well, okay. So I said, let me start kidding. I said, Misty, did you know that the largest Arab American population in this country is in Michigan, in Dearborn Heights and Hamtramck and Dearborn? I've spent a lot of time there with my friend Chris, who's sheriff and is actually running for governor of Michigan. I said, so let me tell you a story, Misty. Back to my story. Chris and I were at a fundraiser for a Arab American candidate running for reelection for the city council in Dearborn, and he had invited Chris to speak. I said we were probably 250 people in the room, and he and I were two of a half a dozen white people because it was the Arab American community. I said, Missy, so before this fundraiser started, every single person in that room stood up and sang the national anthem. Every single one. I've been to a lot of political fundraisers. I've with a lot of white people in particular. I've never seen that. Never. And she looked at me and she said, wow, you've changed my mind. I was wrong. Thank you. I was like, no problem. I mean, that's an extreme, obviously, of both positions and the perfect example. But that to me is why Us United exists right there. And we're trying to do that on scale. I mean, you can't unify a country. What might go 1 to 350 million people. That is not going to get it done. But what is getting it done is telling those stories. We're making a movie of that road trip. We have videos of that on Instagram. We have all the things we've talked about, right? The point is we're giving people through. I mean, here's the good of social media, right? There's a lot of bad, but the good of it is a platform where we can share those stories and inspire people with a positive alternative, a positive example, tools of behavior, tools that can work. That's how we reunite the country. If I'll get some Misty or someone like her will be in unity seats. Exactly that, right? Because that's how I mean, that's how we come together. That's the beauty of it.
Thank you for sharing. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So, Adam, when it comes to division, whether it's racial, political, all the other forms, through your experience, how much of this is a creative narrative through those trying to oppose different forces, or media, political? How much of that is, you feel, so much artificially created versus, or artificially and intentionally created for power,
Mhm.
money, whatever, versus it's a real thing out there that's naturally existing and growing in some form? Any thoughts on that?
Sure. There's a little bit of both. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for sure that we see the significant division that we feel and see, I believe, and I think there's data, and I'll come to it, that backs it up, is driven by media and politics, both of which have incentives: politics for power, media and money, media for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simple, like human nature. You're going to stop and watch the car accident. You're not going to stop and watch two people, holding hands crossing the street. I mean, so
Right.
there's basic human nature that, is being taken advantage of because media is looking for eyeballs and ratings and making money, and politicians are looking for power and money. And look, I mean, Star Wars. I mean, the dark side of the Force versus the light side of the Force. What was the dark side? Fear, greed, anger. One of
Mm-hmm.
the great quotes in the Star Wars movies, right? In the second trilogy, which weren't the greats, right? When the Emperor's taking over and Queen Amidala says, "So this is how democracy dies, with thunderous applause." I mean, these are well worn and treaded themes that have a reality to them, for sure. But there's also a lot of data. There approximately, you look at any number of polls, and they're done all the time, 65, 70% of Americans are not thinking where it's divided and are not invested in division. There's 15% round numbers on each side of the left and the right committed to division, committed to being right, and committed to being loud about it. And that's who we see and hear on the television most of the time. And we see and hear in the social media most of the time. That 70% of Americans, and these are who I was talking to all summer, right? I got to go to work. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to go to school. I got to take care of my kids. I got to mow the lawn, whatever it is. I'm busy. I'm exhausted. I'm just trying to make ends meet. They're not even paying attention to most of the politics, right? So remember, when we say we're that divided, we have to remember those facts. And there's all kinds of polls. 93 to 98% of Americans agree on the Constitution, on the importance of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. Go to the list on the Constitution. I mean, all of these things. There's massive agreement on all of this in America. Very rarely reported on. We want to show the fighting and the division, and that's what's loud. So, one part of my answer to your question is that really is what we see and or dominate. And then I went around the country this summer. So many people, Americans are smart. They know they're being manipulated. They know it's the media and the social media and they shouldn't be on it and they got to get together. The number of people, whether they were 18 or 80, told me that and said, we need to get together and have more lunches and do all those things. Whether they do it or not, different. So for sure, I think a lot of it's manufactured. That said, the other side of it is we have a lot of really challenging questions and issues that our country's facing today. We always have them, but I think even more so today on the economic front, technology now with AI, like abortion's been an issue for and a debate forever. There's a lot of them. And so there are things that we don't agree upon, a large number of them. And I'd be afraid. I mean, something Shaq said too. In a country of 350 million people in a world of 7 billion people, I'd be afraid if we all agreed all the time. I'd be really afraid. So difference of opinion and difference of belief is really critical and important. And that's okay. And we have those. But we have a democracy to work through them. And the point of the democracy is the majority will ultimately make those decisions. And so there are things that divide us. But most Americans do want to find solutions to them. They do want to find a way forward. And I had so many of those conversations. So I think from that kernel or that core of things that we don't all agree upon, which will always be true, politics, media, and very loud voices invested in those things and people invest those things magnify, fan those flames, and make it much worse. And we have to change that. Change the damn algorithm. Just if everyone was just like, I'm not going to get on social media and flame people anonymously, we'd make a lot of damn progress. So change the algorithm, right? Or get out of that bubble and talk to people different than you, right? I have like my conversation with Misty, and I can give you 20 more of those conversations I've had, on the road trip and in different places, because when people talk to each other and share experiences, see the gray, they make change because it's a personal connection. Whoa, I see how this impacted you. I mean, we had a great one. I'm sorry, telling the story. Like 30, we do something called 30 for Us. It's a Zoom every month, and we do these in person. Get lots of people together. We have a topic, put you in a breakout room of 5 random Americans. I got you out of your bubble. We did that once in person, and we had a group of 5 people. And a woman who spoke, second or third, and her answer to the question was, if you were president for the day, what's a change that you would make? And she said, look, if I were president, I would truly ban, both legally and in practice, redlining. Interesting, right? What was really interesting is the other 4 people in the group also asked her, said, what's redlining? They were all white, by the way. She was black. And she explained to them what redlining was and did that with the personal stories of how over 40 years in Detroit and in Michigan, redlining had driven her family out of home ownership, out of neighborhoods, out of financial security. And the whole group had this conversation. And at the end of it, all 5 people came together and they had different answers initially. If I were president, what I would change. They all came together and said, if I were president for the day, I would do what you just said and get rid of redlining for real. That doesn't happen if you hear Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson, Chris Cuomo, Barack Obama, Donald Trump talking about it. Because then you just put into eyes shut down. when someone with passion says, "This is how my family has been devastated by something," you sit there and say, "Wow, we got to change that. That is
Mhm.
not right." That human element, that human connection. And so, um, that was a long answer to your question, but I will never believe that we are this divided because I've never seen it when I've been out there. And I believe in this country and I believe in the people in this country.
Maybe we're a lot closer than we think, and
Yeah.
we just need a push in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
Um, you have a extensive background in business, and now you've gone through this Us United journey more recently. Like, what have you learned about leadership through this experience?
Oh, yeah. Um, that's a great question. I actually, to that point, I am now going and doing corporate speaking and event speaking um, for a couple reasons. One, I have to go be an evangelist for unity in what we're doing, the conversations you and I are having right now, and make more people aware. But in that, there are a lot of lessons that apply. Um, and my speech is called "The Highway to Unity," kind of playing on that, my road
Hmm.
trip. And I think there are 5 key stops on that highway that I talk about that apply to corporate leadership, business leadership, and how you can be both a better leader and a better human, parent, brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever, husband, wife, whatever it may be. First stop, hope. We were talking about that. You have to have hope, right? Think about it. If you don't have hope, how the heck are you leading anybody? And if you don't have hope, your team's going to find some other vision and it isn't going to be yours and it may not be quite so positive. So, hope, critical as a corporate leader. Second stop, self care, personal self care. I can't be the unifier that I am. You can't do what you're doing right now. You can't be a leader of a company or a division or a team. You can't be a parent if you're not taking care of yourself first, right? You can't. If you're not fundamentally have some happiness, you love yourself, have an awareness of what's going on with you, how are you going to connect and love or help anybody else? You're not, right? If you're angry and you're frustrated and you have struggles, that's what you're giving out to the world. You're not going to be great at business leading anything. So that's the second stop on the highway to unity. Hope and personal self-care. Third one, I call dare to fail gloriously. There's a friend, my college roommate started saying that, a long time ago, and it stuck with me. And what does that mean? It does mean taking risks. It does mean thinking out of the box. It does mean how do you get around obstacles? You have to be willing to do that a little. I mean, I'm crazy on that path. I admit it. Like, I would not say to anyone, go do what Adam does, dare to fail gloriously. If I went through my story, which I do in my speech, I've had a lot of failures, but I learned from those failures for sure. I've picked myself up and I'm better for it. You don't have to go as extreme as me, but in whatever you're doing, you got to there's no reward without a little bit of risk. There's no, dare to fail gloriously. It may be saying, you know what, I'm going to try for that promotion, or I'm going to volunteer to lead that team, or I'm going to call and ask that girl out or that guy out, right? Or whatever it is, you have to do that as a leader, as a business person. Yeah, you got to be smart about it. No one's saying, just be blindly jumping in the deep end. But yeah, dare to fail gloriously. Do a little bit of that. Um, and so, from there, you get to um, service. You have to have service. If you're a leader, you're in service of others. You're in service. So, what is Martin Luther King, the greatest question is, what have you done for others? That applies in your business life completely. If you're a leader, you better be taking care of your team. You better be helping them. You better be thinking about how the product or service that you're marketing or you're building is helping people, because that's how you're going to sell it, right? They're not going to be interested if it doesn't sell it, right? So, those are all key things that I think I've further seen and learned and developed in sort of my journey, both business and Us United, that really come out of Us United, right? And then you get to the promised land. You find unity. You find a team that you're leading. You find a company that you're leading. You find success, right? And then you can jump in and do more and more things. And so those are all really important components of what I think leadership comes from this journey that I'm on now. But I think I'm building a business. It just happens to be a not-for-profit. My product is Unity, no different than if I were building a business and my product is, selling cars at General Motors or, selling advertising at Google. I got the same questions and the same challenges.
For sure. Anything you want to touch on that we haven't talked about yet?
Um, well, I mean, look, this is America's 250th birthday. This is a big year. And I think unity is a topic that's front and center of mind for all the reasons we've talked about. Like, are we going to make it another 250 or are we going to make another 25? Like, we will. I don't minimize any of the things that go on in our political system, but there's a lot of resiliency here. But I do think it's a good time for all of us to lift our heads up and really think about those questions and think about the country we want it to be and think about what we can do individually to make that happen. And I've thrown out lots of things that you can do and help and get involved with Us United, but there are lots of other great organizations, lots of other things. But yeah, let's do this. I mean, the founding fathers, like I said, the founding fathers started the greatest startup in the history of the world. We may be the management team 250 years later, but we better do it right. We better make sure it's going for another 250. That's on us.
Adam, 20 years from now, what would you like people to say about your impact through Us United?
I mean, I really hope people say we changed history, that we helped America and its people rediscover their soul, their belief, their hope, that we've changed that. We've changed who's running for office. We've changed all of those things because if we do all these things, people, everyone complains. Oh my God, why do our choices this? Why are they so right, so left, so what? I'm like, you get the choices that you deserve. If you want different choices, engage in the process. And so I hope 20 years from now, people are like, boy, this movement for unity changed our culture, changed how we think about things, changed how we engaged, and helped bring us back from division to a country that's here to solve problems together. Not to agree all the time, but to solve the problems together. And so, yeah, we're going to change history. That's my answer.
What's the best way for people to follow the mission?
Well, they can, follow our social media. We're doing all kinds of content. They can take that Unity pledge, change the algorithm, really post every week, hashtag, do those things. And then get involved. One of my favorite things on our tour, met a woman in Birmingham, Alabama. She and her mom own two little restaurants, and she had the 5 mile rule. And her 5 mile rule was if you engage in your 5 mile community around you, you help people, you participate in local government, you volunteer, you shop local businesses. She's like, you know what happens? You build unity. You don't have to worry about in Alabama whether I'm building unity in Los Angeles, which seems so far away and different. But if everyone's 5 miles overlap, we built unity in the country. I love that. So simple, so easy. So to me, do that. Do that. Take the Unity Pledge, share what you do in your 5 mile rule, share those stories on Us United and hashtag it. Help people. Don't, make the call. All the things we've talked about, really little things. You want more? Come on in. We got holiday spectaculars. We got America's potlucks. We got Unity seats. There's so many ways. But just do a little. Give me a couple minutes a week. That's it. Just 2 minutes of your life a week to share a positive story, and we will change everything. Cliche, one voice is loud, millions are a movement. Join our movement.
Adam Mizell, Us United. Thanks for bringing a little hope today. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the chance and asking great questions. And come on and be part of Us United.
Take care. Thank